My sister and I played games frequently back when we were in later elementary school. She was a worthy adversary, even though she didn't really get into board games all that much. But there was one game that she beat me at consistently. Dogfight. I didn't dare tell the guys at school because, it was a guy game. All airplanes and warfare and that kind of thing. And I was beaten by a girl more than once. How humiliating. And of course she remembers. In 1949, a periodical called American Heritage was first published by an organization called the American Association for State and Local History. That organization is still alive and well, and it was kind of a typical saddle-stitch periodical sort of format. Then in 1954, the Pulitzer Prize-winning author Bruce Catton took over as the managing editor of the publication and gave it a supreme facelift. The magazine was published in a hardcover book format. Now, I have about 70 or so of them in my collection. Here's a picture of what it looks like on the shelf. Thanks to my grandparents, my granddad subscribed. And it was one of those things on his bookshelf that I always went back to and enjoyed browsing through. It was published by several different companies over the years, and it's still being published today, although it's entirely digital, just like so many other things. But it remains a great resource for American history. Well, in 1961, the Milton Bradley Company was looking at publishing a series of historically based games. They called it their Command Decision series. And they teamed up with the folks at American Heritage who endorsed these games due to their historical references. The first game in that series was called Civil War. Later it was renamed as Battle Cry. The second game in the series was Broadsides. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of that. But that recreated naval battles during the War of 1812. Then came Dogfight, depicting World War I air combat. And then Hit the Beach, which was a World War II theme. It was set in the South Pacific. All those but Hit the Beach were re-released again in the 1970s, along with a new game called Skirmish. The Revolutionary War theme fit really well with the U.S. bicentennial in 1976. And all the games got new packaging that tied them in with the 1776 theme. Now, I don't actually recall now whether this was a gift, probably was a gift, and probably was a gift from my grandparents, because they knew how much I liked the American Heritage books. But it's a fairly lightweight game, not real heavy like a lot of war games that were coming out in the mid-60s. But the game itself really did include some innovations at the time. It's recognized as one of the first board games to use card-driven combat resolution. And there was enough detail to make it feel like a simulation, but enough randomness and so on that it was still an accessible board game. And I think it's interesting that they split the rules in two. There's rules here on the inside of the top cover that are obviously about the setup. It includes the premise of the game, describes how to assemble the little airplanes, and some of the fundamentals of how everything works on the board, without having a diagram of the board, actually. And then the rest of the rules are in this little booklet here that actually talk about the specifics, the details of the combat, the player interaction, and a little bit of strategy in the back. There are a lot of details here. It's almost all prose. Very few diagrams. I'm a graphics guy. I like to see the pictures that are a lot more common nowadays. But at any rate, between these two sources, you can easily pick up how to play the game. And so let me see if I can explain them to you in a video format here, and we'll talk about how things work. Okay, so here's what it all looks like on the table. Hopefully that glare is not too bad on the board there. Let me just describe what some of these components are about and how they get set up when you're actually going to play the game. So you start out with your little airplanes here, and they set up on the corners of the board where the pictures of the aircraft are. And these are your airfields. And you'll note that they are color-coded by the color on the top of the hangar back here behind the planes. And the Americans with their camouflage green planes. Or I should say the Allies, I guess. I don't know. They look like they're Americans. And the Fokker D7s over here for the Germans. These little plastic stands, there's one that's assigned to each of the squadrons. And in the corners here, oh, that's the wrong color. Yellow, red. There are also these little round tokens here, and these are supposed to be assigned to these spaces. These represent your anti-aircraft guns, and they protect the planes on the ground from attack, but they can still be attacked, because you will notice that on the bottom of these discs it either says hit or miss. And so you're supposed to be able to strategically place these on the board, but I don't know if the strategy really means much because they're right next to each other. But I just randomize them, and if an enemy plane lands there, it's either a hit or a miss. And then each of these squadrons, or Jagdstaffels, get a small deck of cards that are where they have their maneuvers written. And so those are assigned to each of these units, and so. There are also these little stands, little cardboard cut them up, fold them up things. And they have a slot here for in-flight cards and another slot here for the discards. They're a little bit flimsy. I don't know, is it really necessary? They're just, the idea is that you've got your active cards and your discarded cards. Now we also have here a stack of small insignia, and there's an Iron Cross in red and then a circle that's in green. Those are used to signify airplanes when they have a victory. They become an ace, and by becoming an ace they get to have more move cards on a turn, so that's a good thing. And finally there's a pair of dice here, some nice old wooden red dice. Now when playing with two players, you have two squadrons at your behest, and because there are two little standees there, that means that you get to have two planes in the air at the same time. If you're playing with four people, that's pretty easy. Everybody takes a squadron. The instructions kind of infer that the two German players go first and then the two American players, and you just go around the table, 2, 2, 2, 2. It seemed to me that you might want to stagger that so that one German goes and one American, then one German, then one American. There's also a three-player version. Just one player takes two squadrons, and the others cooperate on the other side. I think that would be a good way to teach the game, but I don't know if it would feel awkward in an actual game. I've never played it that way. So now, how to move the planes. The first thing you have to do is the plane has to take off. And so when you take off, you take the little standee here and you put the plane on that. And now it's up in the air. And as soon as it takes off, you take 4 cards here from this well-shuffled deck of maneuvers, like so. And then you can look at those cards, find out what maneuvers you have available, and then you have the opportunity to use them to the best of your ability. This particular case, I've got nothing but bursts here. So that represents firing my machine guns, and that means that I'm going to be on the offensive here. So that goes in this little stand here. Let's just do the sample game here, of course, to show you how things work. I'll go ahead and take off over here with Jagdstaffel 10. See what kind of cards I get. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, I've got nothing but bursts too. This is going to be a vicious. Encounter, I think. So the Germans go first. I'm not sure why that was set that way, but that's what the instructions say. You roll the 2 dice, and I got a 2 and a 3. So I can choose which of those 2 dice to assign to that plane, because I've only got 1 plane in the air. If I had 2 planes in the air, 1 die would be assigned to one, the other die would be assigned to the other. And so in this case, I'm going to take the 3. The movement is pretty much like you'd expect, 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's all orthogonal, no diagonals at all. And you can turn and go in different directions and go this way and that sort of deal. At the very end of your movement, I've gone 3 spaces, I can choose which direction my plane is going to be facing. It doesn't have a whole lot to do with the movement, but if there's an encounter between the 2 planes, then it's going to be very significant. So that's my turn. Now it's time for the Americans to move. I got 2 dice, and I've got a 2 and a 3, same as that guy. So, by the way, you can move over your own anti-aircraft guns, and they won't shoot at you. 1, 2, 3. Okay, back to the Germans. Another 2 and a 3. So I got a 1 and a 2. I'll just use the 2. I'm going to sit right there. Okay, Merkin. A 1 and a 4. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. You can move in a lot of different directions, but the rules say that you cannot go into the same square twice during a move except for the first square, so that you could loop around and end up where you started. But you can't go through the same square twice. So there's not any back and forth kind of thing to stall for time. But this is a case where I can do 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're head to head, and there's specific rules for how that conflict is going to go. So I will play a card here. I think maybe you can guess which one. And my enemy is going to play a card here as well. We'll flip them both over, and we both got 5 bursts. But because we equaled the same number on both cards, they cancel each other out. So now we get a chance to go at it again. And so I'll do the best I can. 3. I wonder what my German counterpart has. He has a 5, and unfortunately the 5 shoots down my plane. So what happens when the plane gets shot down is it goes back in a box, out of the game. The little stand goes back over here for my squadron to launch another plane. This German, now that he's shot down one of my planes, he gets to have one of these insignias put on the stand to signify that he is now an ace. Now that doesn't have any effect while he's still in flight. The way I cash in on that distinction is I have to take that plane back to the airfield, land the plane, and then I replenish my cards, but because there's an ace, he gets 6 cards to choose from. So there's a lot more versatility there. The idea being that that experience pays off. So let me play a few more turns here, and we'll demonstrate a couple of other things. My guy's going to launch another plane, which means that that plane was shut down, so all these cards go away. All these go into a discard pile. And so I get 4 new cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I have 1 burst, 2 burst, 4 burst, and a loop. Loop is a good defense against a tail attack, and I'll show that here in just a minute. So my German ace is still flying with 2 cards over there, so let's see what happens. The German has a 2 and a 2. He's just going to go at it. Now there's one other thing about the planes going back to the airfield. They can only return to the airfield after they've crossed this center line on the board, this no man's land, or they've shot down another plane, an enemy plane. That allows them to land again. Back to the American side. Oh, a 6 and a 6. Let's see, which one will I choose? We've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can get in front of them, And I have a 4 burst. He's already used a couple of 5 bursts, so that may be a way to go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm attacking. So I am going to play the four bursts, and we'll see if that's successful. Now he's an ace, but he has not been back to the airfield to replenish his cards, so he only has 2 to choose from. And the best he can do in defense is a 3. So that means that I have shot down the ace. So the ace goes out of the game. The little insignia comes off from the stand, and then we start over back there. Now you can kind of see that we have a lot more going on if I have all 4 squadrons represented out there in the air. Now just for the sake of demonstration, so let's demonstrate what happens when there's a tail attack. This German is on the tail of the American there. And let's just say that he has available a 3 burst attack. And so my only real defense to that is if I have a loop. And a loop card allows me to do the following. I trade places like that. I go a loop behind that other plane. And now, because I'm back there, I get a chance to attack my attacker. So he was kind of betting that I wouldn't have a loop. I have in my arsenal here 2 bursts. He has nothing. He has no way to defend against that. So that would shoot him down. A rear attack like that takes a loop to escape. A side attack is defended by a roll, a barrel roll. I don't know if you can see that on screen anyway. Now when you run out of cards in the draw pile, you reshuffle, you start them over again. Pretty typical stuff. It is possible to shoot down a plane that's not in the air. For example, if I flew over here and I wanted to confront this plane here, I can, let's see, 1, 2. If I had a roll of 2, the first half of that I would land on this anti-aircraft gun and I would have to see whether I was hit or not. It says it was a miss, so I can continue my mission and go to the 2 and then attack that plane on the ground. I have 1 burst. That plane has no defense, so that would take that plane out of the game. And so that's a good thing to do, but now I'm stuck way back here in enemy lines. I have to get all the way back here and then land, like so, and then I'll have to take off again, which there's a lot of delay there, but it's very realistic. I got to get back to my landing field, refuel, get new ammo, whatever it might happen to be, before I go back out on another sortie against the enemy. I mentioned that if you shoot down a plane, you become an ace, and you get one of these, so that means when that plane goes back to the airfield, you get 6 cards. If you shoot down another plane, you get 2 of these, which is a double ace, and you get 8 cards. So that's pretty nice. You can get a plane up to that point, but then you're more dangerous, so chances are the enemy is going to try to track you down before you can get back to your airfield. And you're low on fuel, low on ammo. Meaning you probably don't have that loop to get out of your rear attack. Now all of this gameplay continues until one of the sides emerges triumphant and you've shot down all the enemy planes. There can be some surprises in there because of the randomness of the cards, that you might be down to 1 plane, but you get a few lucky attacks in there. There's a lot of potential no matter how far into the game you are and how depleted your forces. A couple other notes. The edges of the board are the edges of the world. It's kind of like you're stuck in a little twilight zone of World War I, which doesn't sound too appealing. But if you're at the edge of the board, nobody can attack you from behind. But then again, you're limited to the maneuvers that you can do at the edge of the board. So it's a good idea to stay out in the middle there where you have some options open to yourself. So even though my sister beat me, I really enjoy this game. It's a good little strategy game, and there's enough variableness to it that enough risk and reward to it that it keeps it very interesting. Oh, and one more thing. I forgot to mention that this little booklet comes with the game. It came with the game originally, and it is a concise history of World War I fighter pilots and the planes they flew to glory. It's about 30 pages. Pretty neat little supplement to the game. In 1987, the folks at Milton Bradley came out with Screaming Eagles. You can see it here behind me. And essentially what that is a updated version of Dogfight. The board is a wraparound so that there's no limits. You can fly off this side and back on the other, fly off the end and start at the back again. It also includes die roll damage. The jets are fast and quite maneuverable, and so it definitely takes Dogfight to the next level, and I really enjoy that game too. I didn't play my sister on that game, but I played my son quite a bit, and we really enjoyed the game. So, Milton Bradley's Dogfight. Terrific game. I highly recommend it. Loads of fun. And it can be found online at the auction sites, and you can occasionally find it in a thrift store. When you do find it, chances are it's going to be all beat up, just like mine is. All the corners are frayed and broken and taped and nasty, and hopefully you've got all the parts inside so that you can play the game. It's beat up because it's played. It's played a lot. It's a very good game. And so you get your own copy and you set it up on the dining room table, and then you can be sure to play every day. You know the game's a classic when it can be found in a museum. Here's a picture of the game at the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. in their World War I section. The curator knows that they've got a classic on their hands, eh?